Shalom and welcome to this special State of the Union edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and instead of our usual time on the first Monday of the month at 12 o'clock, we have Joe Newby with us today at 12 o'clock, and we're asking the question, has America lost its mind? Open borders, infanticide. The State of the Union is chaos and division. The political landscape of America is changing, and socialism is rearing its head in a more profound way than any other previous time in our history. Conservatism is being redefined, and the Bible, even if referenced, is no longer the foundation upon which America is built. Here to talk about what's going on in America today is Joe Newby of conservativefiringline.com. Joe is a 10-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps who wrote for Examiner.com for 6 years. His articles have appeared at Newsbusters, Spokane, Faith and Value, and other websites. He currently runs a conservative firing line where he discusses issues important to conservatives. You can find him at conservativefiringline.com, and he is the co-author of Banned, How Facebook Enables a Militant Islamic Jihad. Here to talk about the State of the Union is Joe Newby. Joe, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Eric, and how are you this fine morning?
I'm very well, thank you. Sorry we didn't get you on yesterday. The world powers were working against you. The greatest world powers in the world right now are Microsoft and Apple and Google, and Microsoft owns Skype, and so you were having problems with Microsoft and Skype both at the same time, and they're I guess they're getting to the point where they think they're too big to fall.
I guess so. Well, it's gotten to the point, especially with some of the larger companies, that I've now that's exactly what's going on. And I see that we're having some Skype issues yet this morning. For the benefit of your audience, we are experiencing global warming up here in the Pacific Northwest. So that may very well be what is going on. But it seems to be cutting in and out periodically. Hopefully it'll stay as stable as possible. But it's great to see you again this morning, Eric, this fine February morning.
It is indeed. So, Joe, so much is going on. The rhetoric out of Washington is stunning and remarkable, but the best was this morning when I opened up my news. I saw a picture of Hillary Clinton from 1970 in blackface. And, this is just going to set the Democratic Party on end as it takes on this issue of the governor in Virginia, who has decided that he's going to ask his cabinet to give him time to sort this out. And, there's just crazy making. They're talking, New York passes laws to kill children. How is this not murder?
That's a very good question, Eric. I wish I had a good answer for you. It is murder. That's exactly what it is, and this is exactly what the Democrats are pushing on America nationwide. The Democrats have become so radical that they no longer care. The mask is completely ripped off now. We know exactly what the Democrat Party is all about, and it is all about, in fact, death and taxes. That's the happier they are. So, but you're exactly right. That's exactly what's going on with the Democrat Party. There's no question in my mind about that.
It's so obvious. Why is it not shocking more Americans? I mean, the outrage should be phenomenal. I mean, here you have Kermit Gosnell, the doctor in Philadelphia that was murdering babies, who was tried, I believe, and convicted on 11 counts of murder.
Yes.
And what he was doing was, as they were delivering the babies, live birth, he was severing their spinal cords and was committing murder. And under Pennsylvania, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania law, was convicted of 11 cases of murder. He's serving 11 consecutive life sentences for the murders of those children. There were many more fetuses found, many more babies found. Why is it that a state, and I understand that Roe v. Wade gave the states the permission to determine for themselves, but how can a state legally alter what is a definition in the preamble of the Constitution, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator, that's God, with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life? Does this not stand right against the very preamble of the Declaration of Independence, which says that we are entitled to life?
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right, Eric. This is entirely it's hideous, actually, what's going on with the Democrat Party. You've got this guy up in New York, Andrew Cuomo, when they lit up. They're lighting up buildings to celebrate murder, and this guy down in Virginia, who is pushing for this heinous, hideous abortion bill. It's sickening, Eric. But for those of us who have been watching this sort of thing for some time now, this really is nothing new. It's just that now the mask has been ripped off, and we see the Democrat Party exactly for what it is. I remember here a few years ago, there was a Planned Parenthood lobbyist who actually lobbied for post-birth abortion. This is as sick as it gets, Eric. If we can't even recognize the value of life in the womb, then, in my view, we are doomed as a nation, Eric. There's no question about it.
What are the pollsters saying? I'm looking at a Gallup poll that says that let's see, at a high, 57% think it should be legal under, at a high, 29%, 34% in 1992 thought that it should be legal under any circumstances. In 2018, right. Only 29% thought it should be legal under any circumstances. 50% said that it should be legal only under circumstances, under certain circumstances, and 16% said it should be illegal under all circumstances. So right. The vast minority are in favor of the abolishment of abortion. But the majority, or half, not majority, but half, say it should be legal only under certain circumstances. But this is not the agenda of the Democratic Party, and it's just appalling that they're talking about full term. This is murder. How does this not meet the standard of murder?
Well, because you see, the Democrats and the left in general like to play with language. It's like George Orwell wrote, and I'm going to paraphrase what he wrote in his book 1984, that essentially saying that whoever controls a language controls the government. And that's what has happened here. The left has effectively co-opted language, Eric. What used to be called murder is now called choice. And it's not just abortion. I mean, this is you take a look at any issue that is a straight left right type of issue, and you find the same kind of thing happening. What the left has done is they have effectively words no longer really matter much. And that's what's happening here with abortion. You and I, and those of us who are opposed to abortion, we look at it and we see it as murder, as infanticide, which that's what it is. But the left looks at it and they want to call it choice. And that's a big reason why, I think.
According to Gallup, from July of 1996 through May of 2018, 80%, no less than 80%, a low of 80 and a high of 86%, said that it should be illegal to have any abortion in the last 3 months of pregnancy.
I absolutely.
Yet, New York passes a law, and the Democrats are celebrating this. How can 80% or more of the survey of the population of adults, how can they possibly be against terminating in the last trimester? How can these things pass? It's beyond my comprehension, and in a nation that calls itself Christian.
Well, Eric, that's you probably asked a $64,000 question there. The reason how is because the people who are opposed to abortion, as you and I, and like you said, the vast numbers that you mentioned in the poll, unfortunately, far too many of those individuals do not go out and vote, and that has been a problem for a long time. And in fact, Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry know this full well. That's why they really don't care. And they've come out in the past, Eric, and they've actually said it in the past. They don't care.
This lack of conservatives getting out to vote is exactly the problem, and yet the RNC does not invest the same amount as the DNC in getting the popular vote out in these important elections.
That's exactly true. That's because conservatives, and I'm speaking from experience here, having worked in conservative political campaigns in the past. Conservatives have a real good knack, in my view, of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. How else can we explain the election of somebody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is not only ignorant, but is perhaps the most radical individual to have ever been elected to Congress? This is a person so radical that James Wood, the actor, the conservative actor, very active on Twitter, has a huge Twitter following. He came out with a tweet calling her the most dangerous woman in America right now, and he is absolutely correct. The reason people like that, and the people like those who put this law into effect in New York, the reason they do that, Eric, is precisely because conservatives are too busy engaging in these circular firing squads. They don't unite when the time comes. They don't get out the vote when the time comes. And when the time comes, they're too busy, nursing their wounds to go out and say, okay, well, my guy lost in the primary, so I'm just not going to vote. That'll teach them. Right. And that's exactly how we get people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, this Democrat Ilhan Omar from Minnesota. That's how we get people like that. Because you're right, Eric, conservatives do not unite when the time comes. and they do not get out and vote when it's necessary.
What's going to happen? 2020 comes along and they put out a candidate that is going to, can they put out a candidate that's going to unseat Donald Trump?
On which side, the Democrat side
Yes.
or the Republican side?
Democrat side.
I honestly, well, at this point, I'd like to say no. But then again, with what we have seen over the past 10 years, I have to be realistic enough to say that any and whoever the eventual candidate will be. But we also have to deal with what I call the Democrat media complex, and that's this propaganda arm of the Democrat Party, which is now working overtime to unseat Donald Trump. So, I would like to look at this field of candidates and say to myself, there's no way that a sensible person could vote for any of these people. But then again, I have to come back to reality and deal with the fact that, yes, there was a district that elected Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There's a district out there that elected Maxine Waters. There's a state out there that elected Kamala Harris. So, and let's not forget, Barack Obama won not one, but 2 elections.
It's so ridiculous that I read a report today that said that a young man is suing his parents because they didn't ask him if he wanted to be born.
You know what, Eric? I caught a snippet of that on my way into work last night. I was listening to the radio and I heard this story, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, yeah. He supposedly, from what I heard, I have to verify this, but from what I heard in the report, I guess he really had no problem with his parents, but something, I guess, happened in his life, and he feels like his parents should have consulted him before he was born. Yes, Eric. What do you say to something like that?
But this is the level of thinking. Here we're supposed to be in 2019, the most informed age of humanity. Access to millions of volumes of literature, the greatest writers of all time. Their information is a click away. If you want to read everything that Plato wrote, it's a click away. It's on a PDF. If you want to read what Socrates wrote, if you want to research Einstein, all that is available. We should be generating the greatest thinkers in the world, the greatest ideas. We should be investing in cures for cancer. We should be looking at the aging brain and Alzheimer's and dementia, car safety. People are getting killed on the highway, the damaging effects, all these things. And so we have these brilliant minds. And then we have this idiocracy that talks about Senate Democrats blocking a bill to protect babies who survive abortion.
Yeah.
So guess what? You have Tim Tebow, who was supposed to be aborted. Look at all the people throughout history that were supposed to be aborted, and some who survived. I think it's Botticelli survived abortion,
Right.
and wound up being one of the greatest singers of all time. The Senate Democrats blocked a bill to protect babies who survived abortion. How is this possible? And this is the Senate.
Right.
The Senate,
And that's
the
because
Senate has how many Republicans?
That's right, and that's because Republicans are too busy trying to convince the media and trying to convince the left that they're really not the mean, racist, cruel, sexist, what have you, individuals that they've been made out to be. They're far too busy curling up, with their thumbs, sucking their collective thumbs, and instead of standing up and standing up to this nonsense and doing what's right.
I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that we have a Republican-controlled Senate that cannot pass a bill.
Right.
How could they not get enough Republican senators, a majority of senators, Republican, to defend the rights of a baby that survives abortion?
Because there are far too many, like, Jeff Flake, although he's gone. But then again, there's far too many like Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, and a few others who, quite frankly, are more opposed to something because Donald Trump supports it, rather than supporting something or opposing something because it's right or wrong. And unfortunately, that kind of thinking permeates what takes place, permeates the Congress, not just in the Senate, but in the House as well. There's far too much Trump hatred that's blinding what these people are doing.
Here's what it says in the preamble to the Constitution. It says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
Right.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is, in all caps, the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the form to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. We are at the same crossroads that the founding fathers were at when this was drafted and instituted, and still is the preamble to the Constitution of the, to the Declaration of Independence and the preamble to the Constitution, which establishes our right to kick these people out. They are not doing the will of the governed. They do not represent me. They do not represent you. And this anti-Trump sentiment has gone so far as to undermine the very fabric where the laughing stock of the world, and America is the strongest nation in the world, that is so absolutely intent on destroying itself.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And the Democrat Party has shown its roots. It's shown exactly what it wants for this country. It's working to turn the United States into another version of Venezuela, basically. Like I said, I keep going back to Ocasio-Cortez, who's wanting a 70% top marginal rate. Others have been talking about 70 to 90% top marginal rates. And you put on top of that all of the social justice programs that they want to put into place.
We're still having a little trouble with Joe's connection. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back from that break, we're going to see if we can't get Joe's connection cleared up. We'll be right back. Not everything that makes the headlines has biblical importance, but many events that happen around the world do. and you never hear about them. Igniting a Nation is pleased to teach Revealing Prophecy every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at the Marriott 280 in Birmingham. We will cover worldwide events and insider information that will connect the dots of what's happening around the world with biblical prophecy. If you happen to miss a class, we'll televise each week's class at 10 o'clock Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our social media outlets. Copies of the teachings will also be available to purchase on our website at www.ignitinganation.com. The Lord meets you right where you are, and so does Igniting a Nation's new live streaming outlets. You can now watch Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Prophecy Revealed simulcast live each Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Vimeo, Periscope, and through our website, www.ignitinganation.com. No matter what device you are using, our program will automatically scale so you won't have to miss a single program. And if you happen to miss an episode, you can always subscribe to the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel and access over 1,000 interviews and never miss your favorite authors, special guests, and topics that interest you the most.
There are lots of ways to see Israel, but nothing compares to seeing the land of the book and the people of the book through the eyes of two Jewish believers who can take you on a journey that will bring the entire Bible to life. When you join Rabbi Eric Walker and his #1 rated tour guide, Edo Canaan, in Israel, you'll experience incredible teachings, first-class accommodations, and actually walk where Jesus walked. You will experience the Bible transforming from black and white into living color, and you will never see the Bible in the same way again. For more information, visit us at www.ignitinganation.com/events.
The Lord contends with what contends with you, and Igniting a Nation is committed to bringing to light each and every issue that faces a believer's life. Our live stream programming and teachings take you on a journey to finding biblical truth from a wide variety of experts who share their insights into a deeper walk with the Lord. We have assembled the most comprehensive panel of experts in the fields of prophecy, caregiving, healing from trauma, shame, and abuse, and so much more. We continue to expand our teachings and programming to meet your needs. We're committed to healing the nations with biblical truth. Visit www.ignitinganation.com to develop a deeper walk with the Lord and start your journey to a transformed life. The Bible commands us to study to show ourselves approved, but most study using Bible study tools and not actually studying the Bible chapter and verse. Igniting a Nation is pleased to present Revealing the Bible, recorded and taught each week before a live audience. We take you deeper into the actual Bible and verse in both Hebrew and English and connect the dots between the Old and New Testament. You can attend our 2 classes in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, or watch the program every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our other simulcast outlets. For more information, visit www.ignitinganation.com/events. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Joe Newby of conservativefiringline.com. Joe, welcome back to the program.
Good to see you again, Eric.
So, Joe, it is apparent that America is going to hell in a handbasket. What is your prediction about tonight's State of the Union address?
I think the president is set to talk about bipartisanship, working together as Americans, unity. I expect that, well, in fact, the Democrats have already come out and rejected his call for unity and bipartisanship. Maxine Waters has already come out and told Americans not to even bother tuning in, which tells me that there'll probably be a whole lot more people tuning in just because she told them not to. Chuck Schumer has already come out and denounced what the president. I think we're going to see President Trump trying to make his case to the American people. I think the American people will connect and listen to what he has to say, and they will see the childishness of the Democrats. That's what I expect will come out of this.
The progressive, it's not even progressive, it's not even liberal, it's just the left. It's all synonymous now. There used to be a left that was left of center, that was, and I think it was the left of center and right of center that got Donald Trump elected. It was that 40-40 swath through the middle that got him into office. Now you have anything that is left of center seems to be extreme. There doesn't seem to be. I think that, who was it? The president of Starbucks said, I would run, but if I ran, I would run as an independent centrist because I can't stand with the liberal, ultra-progressive agenda, and therefore that would only take votes away from, and of course you and I both hope that somebody does run with some power as an independent, therefore to divide the vote equally so that the Republican candidate wins. But it's just amazing to me that left has become more radical than it was in the 60s and 70s when, and I forget who said it, that said if you, the cycle of life is you're going to be a liberal in your 20s, and when you finally grow up, you're going to become a conservative in your 40s.
Well, yeah, I've heard Rush Limbaugh say something very much like that. He says that if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart. If you're still a liberal in your 30s, you have no brain. That's pretty much the way I've heard it. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think most people, Eric, fall somewhere in the middle. I think most people, yes, you have, people that are far right. I guess I could be considered one of those. Then you have people who are far left. But I think most all of us, Eric, tend to fall, like you said, somewhere within that middle 40%, where yes, they may hold some liberal positions on a few issues, and they may hold some fairly conservative positions on other issues. And I think that's where the vast majority of the electorate is at. Sometimes, like you were saying earlier, the left has just gotten so far, so crazy, that now they have actually embraced death. They have shown us exactly what it is that they are, and I think what we're going to see is a shift. That's going to end up shifting more people, I think, to, if not to the center, to the right. I mean, look, you've got this, walk away movement, where people are saying, they're fed up with the radicalism of the Democrats, and they're walking away from the Democrat Party, and they're saying, no, you people are too radical for us. We can't go where you're wanting to take us. I mean, let's face it, Eric, the Zell Millers, the Joe Liebermans, they're gone. Those individuals are no longer welcome in the Democrat Party. The Democrats have made that quite clear. The Democrat Party has gone as far to the left as I have ever seen it, and I suspect that it will go even further left before 2020 gets here.
Are we looking at like a Joe Biden who can carry the party because he is established with a running mate that is just a character out of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
That is entirely possible. There are so many people now who are throwing their hat to the Democrat Party primaries that it's hard to say who is going to come out on top. Kamala Harris. I heard Rush Limbaugh saying something similar to this the other day. She came out with her introductory speech, opening up her campaign, her kickoff speech. And yes, her ideas were wild, crazy, and madcap, which is what we would expect from Kamala Harris. But she presented them almost like Barack Obama did. She had a commanding presence. She had, she was able to draw a crowd. Now, whether or not anybody outside of California and New York and maybe Seattle will vote for it, now that's a different story. Certainly, one of the things too that I'm watching is what's going on with the Democrats with regard to the Electoral College. There is a huge move in the Democrat Party to get rid of the Electoral College, because right now, Eric, that is realistically, in my view, the only way that the Democrats can win. Because when you look at the precincts across the country that have voted Republican versus those who have voted Democrat, what you see is quite literally a dotted here and there, mostly in California, Western Washington, New York, some places in Florida, maybe New Mexico, a few other places. And so if the Democrats are ever successful in getting rid of the Electoral College, we will see that the vast majority of the country will have absolutely no say in who becomes the president of the United States. And that's exactly the scenario that the founding fathers wanted to avoid.
In the time it's going to take to put together a constitutional convention, I don't think they have time for the 2020 election to repeal the constitutionality of the Electoral College. So I think that we are looking at down the road, further than 2020 and that happening, because it would take 75% of the Senate in order to have that constitutional amendment changed.
Well, I think what they're trying to push, Eric, is something not quite to the point of a constitutional amendment, although legally that's what it would take to change it. From what I understand, what they're wanting to do is they're basically wanting to do an end run around the Constitution. Now, yes, who is it? Steve Cohen, I think it was, from Tennessee, actually put forward an amendment to get rid of the Electoral College. You're right, that will never get passed before 2020. It will never get ratified by a supermajority of the states or the House and Senate. It just isn't going to happen. So what they are wanting to do is they're wanting to change each state's laws to require, get this, require that all of that state's electoral college votes go to whomever wins the popular vote. That's what they're pushing for now. So in essence, what they're doing, as I see it, is they're wanting to do a Hail Mary pass around the Constitution.
What do you think the chances of getting enough states, well, really the states that matter are going to be California, New York, Texas, Florida, the bigger states that have the larger populations, which would then sway the electoral vote, would pull it away from being the divide that it is now to being 100% one way, backing fully the popular vote, which would that in essence ensure that whoever the popular candidate was in the higher population areas would represent the entire United States.
Right. Right now, as I understand it, there are enough states to cover 173 electoral votes. The states who have signed on to this compact, if you will. So it really wouldn't take a whole lot for the Democrats to be able to round up enough states to bring that number up to the full 270 required electoral college votes. Now, I don't think personally that will happen before the 2020 election. Um, but then you have to remember there are states like Colorado, Washington State has already adopted this. Um, Quite a few other states have signed on to this. Connecticut, a few others. Washington, for example, I mean, they're so crazy over there where it doesn't matter. If you have um, 5 candidates running in their state primaries, let's say you have 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and let's just say for argument 2 independents. And you have the 3 primaries, Republican, Democrat, and whatever. It doesn't matter who wins that party's primary in the state of Washington. All that matters is who are the 2 top vote getters. So by the time the general comes around, you could very easily have 2 Democrats running against each other without a Republican candidate, without an independent candidate, or a Constitution Party or whichever other third party is out there, Libertarian, what have you. And that's the way Washington State does it. So if you vote for a Republican, thinking that your candidate will go up against the Democrat in the general, that may not happen. And it's crazy. It's what they call the top 2 over there. That's who goes into the general. And I think that there are people who would want to see something like that in the presidential election. And I don't see how that can possibly work at all.
So, constitutionally, under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution, requires each state legislature to determine how many electors for the state are to be chosen.
Right.
Do you think that this state law, where all votes go to the popular, all the electoral college votes goes to the popular, do you think that would stand up in the judiciary and pass a constitutionality test for the Supreme Court?
As long as we have constitutionalists on the courts that are looking at these, I would have to say probably not. However, if you have justices like what we've got in the Ninth Circuit and in some of these other courts, then I'd have to say, who knows? Anything can happen.
So let's say the Ninth Court says it's constitutional, then you go to an appeal, and that's going to put it in front of the Supreme Court.
Right.
That would be advantageous at this point in time to do it within the next 2 years, to get this brought before the Supreme Court, to get a decision made that is unconstitutional according to Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution.
Right. I would think so, yes.
You know, you and I are sitting here as two, you're a journalist, I'm a talk show host. I'm not a journalist. You're a journalist, I'm not a journalist. You're an investigative journalist. I'm just a talk show host. But you and I have talked about things that are policy, things that are to do with the Constitution, things that the average American should be educated about, that knows nothing about what we're talking about to the degree that we're talking about it. I have a copy of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence right by my side, along with a copy of my Bible. They're with me all the time. I have one here in the studio, I have one on my desk, I have one at my desk at home. Those are the three documents which are next to me at all times, because that is the foundation of my freedom in America, my foundation, my freedom in Christ. And so that is what I stand on all the time. That's what you stand on all the time. We know that America is biblically illiterate. I'm beginning to believe that they're politically illiterate, because how can this sham continue to go on without an outcry of the public at the polls? And we're not seeing an outcry of the public at the polls. The fact that the Congress, that the House went Democrat tells us that the Republican Party, and Alabama is guilty, absolutely guilty of giving away this seat. They picked the wrong candidate for the wrong season at the wrong time, and went and lost a seat that Jeff Sessions filled, and lost it to a misrepresenting Democrat who said that he was not as liberal as he's turning out to vote, and he's taken the party line, and we're now a divided state with one senator who is completely conservative and one senator who just offsets his vote and nullifies his vote, and therefore we're a state with zero voice in what happens in this country. We've done this to ourselves because the voters didn't turn out, and because they didn't like the candidate. They didn't realize what they were giving up. This was the same thing that happened why Mitt Romney lost the election, was because people didn't want a Mormon in office. Your choice was Barack Obama or Mitt Romney. I agree. Not two great choices, but Mitt Romney was a better choice than Barack Obama for this nation. Regardless of his religious persuasion, he still had a conservative business sense about him, and we would not have Obamacare and this debacle had we not taken this position. Well, I'm not going to put a Mormon. Think about when they had that attitude about putting a Catholic. What's their attitude about putting?
Well, and there were other issues with Mitt Romney.
We're going to give Joe's internet a chance to catch up, but there were other issues with Mitt Romney as well when he began to become Obama-sized.
Right, and that's exactly what happened in that election against Barack Obama. Mitt Romney turned out to be a weak candidate. Let's face it. So did John McCain. Let's be honest with this. This is why we got Donald Trump. Because people said, you know what, enough of this establishment garbage, enough of this, let's reach out just for the sake of reaching out. We need somebody that's going to get in there and is going to say, excuse my language, but damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Let's get the job done. Clearly, Mitt Romney did, and look at the way Mitt Romney is acting now, Eric. I mean, he's showing that side of himself now.
Right.
In the Senate, even after Donald Trump backed him up.
How culpable do you find the current White House staff and advisors in this horrific PR campaign of 2 years of bad publicity, bad management, message management, bad message delivery, and no one being strong enough to rein in the tweet storms of Donald Trump so that people can focus on his accomplishments, because he is, in many ways, the greatest president we've had from an accomplishment standpoint, but the most distracting president we've ever had from a messaging standpoint, because his message is new every day, but based on who he wants to pick on. And he's become his own worst enemy in this particular scenario, and yet there's nobody been strong enough to stand up against it or to coach him or to counsel him, and that concerns me. I'm a strong Trump supporter based on his accomplishments, but from a degree of difficulty, he gets a 10. Style points, all right, my number's a 5. 10 for degree of difficulty, 5 for style points, doesn't get you the gold medal. We've got to get the next 2 years where the messaging out of this White House is crisp, clean, and on point. And I'm praying and hoping that tonight's State of the Union address will be crisp, clean, and on point, and that he will take that position and continue to stay on track, because this Mueller investigation is continually fed by these tweets. It's completely fed by these new names popping up. continually fed by these leaks coming out of this White House that are just ridiculous. It's out of control.
I tend to agree with you on that, Eric. I do think that we're not exactly seeing the discipline that we have seen in previous Republican administrations. I can't imagine this kind of thing taking place in a Reagan administration. In terms of messaging, like you said, Ronald Reagan, I think was just as every bit as strong as Donald Trump. But then again, we have to remember that Donald Trump is a different kind of person. He is not a politician. He is a businessman first and foremost. He's someone who is used to going in, seeing a problem, determining what the problem is, and then fixing the problem. Washington is not a place where problem solvers thrive. I mean, let's be honest, okay? Washington is a swamp, and the swamp creatures have ruled Washington, D.C. for far too long. And, we've been used to the Ronald Reagans. We've been used to the Barack Obamas. We've been used to the slick talkers, the people who can say one thing out of one side of their mouths and then turn around and do something totally different. That's not Donald Trump. And I think the sooner that the country and those of us who support the president, I think the sooner that we all recognize that and recognize that, okay, that's just who Donald Trump is. Let's focus on not just the message, but let's focus on getting the job done. I think the sooner we can do that, the better off we will be. But I do agree with you. You make a very good point in that the president does need to stay focused and
And there you have it, my friends. Joe Newby from conservativefiringline.com. Unfortunately, Joe, we've run out of time, and we apologize for the internet ins and outs, but I believe that we got our points across effectively.
I think so.
That America needs to wake up, listen, pay attention, and get the vote out if we are going to take this country back out of the jaws of these absolute crazy people who are taking this country down a path of destruction. Because if we don't close our borders, then the Islamization of America is ensured. And while we're distracted with opioids and with the border on the south, the border on the north is completely unprotected, and the immigration policies of Canada are not being paid attention to. And there's just so many issues that America needs to wake up and face. And the killing of children is just unacceptable at every level. And although we stand with Israel and we are a blessed nation, God's not going to tolerate the murder of children for very long before the wrath of God is poured out on this nation. Joe Newby, we will see you this time next month, but on Monday at 12 o'clock on March the 4th, we will see you then for our regular time with Joe Newby of conservativefiringline.com. Subscribe to conservativefiringline.com and get the latest and greatest point of view on the conservative aspects of what's going on in our nation. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.